guys, this is Laura, and I went ahead for our history. First little bit is about Vikings. I looked on my shelves to see what we had other than children's encyclopedias, and I only found one book. As I'm looking at this, there's another book that we have around here somewhere too. Samuel reads it all the time. It's called Living Long Ago, and it's by Usborne. And it's like split up into what people wore, what they ate, what their houses were like, and things like that. The Vikings are in there too, but I don't have that book here right now. But I do have this book, and it has a section in it about Vikings, this fictional family that they kind of go throughout and kind of look at how they lived and kind of what are some of the things they did, and talking about their longboats and raiding and sailing and just all kinds of stuff. The feasting that they did, the burials, Iceland trips, and anyway, it's just got all kinds of stuff in here about Vikings and their way of life. And here's their map and where all they traveled and what they did. And here's a more condensed story of the Vikings. So that's pretty much it that I have in the way of Vikings. So I will be heavily relying on library books. It is time for us to take our Viking books back to the library, and I thought I would show you what our favorite ones are. We got way more than this, but these are the ones that we went back to again and again. We've actually renewed some, and these are the ones that we really liked. This first one is a Kingfisher Reader, so if you have a child who's a little bit advanced, not like super advanced, but a little more advanced with reading, it's a level 3, so they might be able to read some of this on their own. Most of these books have very similar headings and things that they're about. It's just about Viking life. One of my favorite things about this book is that a lot of the vocabulary, most of the vocabulary, let's see if I can just find them, they're in line with the text, and it doesn't stop necessarily to explain what it is. It does bold them so that you know that they're in the glossary, but then you can go back in the glossary and look up those words. And I like that it stays in line and doesn't define them all the time, because that really can mess up the text and it makes it very readable. But I love that they're there and that you can do some more vocabulary exercises with that. And this, I think, was Samuel's favorite. He had me read it the most, and it just talks generally about Viking life, and is written in a very easy read way. Like, you could just read through this whole book as a story. These books, Picture the Past, are fantastic. One is about Viking ships and one is about a Viking town. And these are another one Samuel just would have me read through like a story. And it has vocabulary as well. It's got lots and lots of images, like photographs, and lots of drawings as well. And I like this because this one, there's a lot of stuff on Viking ships, but this takes a different approach in that it doesn't just talk about the ship and the way it was built and all of that. It talks about what they did with the ships and what instruments they used on the ships and how they took care of the ships and cleaned them and things like that that a lot of other books don't talk about. So even if you have other books on Viking ships, this is still a great addition because it kind of approaches it from a different perspective. And both of these books have activities or recipes that you can do in the back. This one has a recipe for flatbread, which is what Vikings would have eaten on the ship, an example of what they would have eaten. So you can make that too, which is really, really fun. And then this is the same idea. It talks about a Viking town, and I like it because it goes into more detail about daily life of Vikings than a lot of the other books, and talks about a few more aspects of town than you might get. It talks about education of the children, and I just like that these are really outside of the box, so they're really additions. So even though we had a ton of Viking books, a lot of them went over the same things, but I feel like these two books were very different and not repetitive in their information. And this one also has a recipe in the back of what Vikings might have eaten, a berry pudding recipe. So that's really fun. And then this one is great because this is the DK I Wonder. This is great because it's all photographs, and it has photographs of reenactments, which my son really, really appreciated. And this is one that's just totally different. While the other ones you could read through like a story, this one is really broken up. So you can thumb through it, and your child could be just interested in one picture and ask you to read about what's happening in that one picture, like in this picture, what's happening there, what's happening there. And you can just read it in kind of a spotty manner like that. So it's just a different kind of read. but also something really, really great to have added to a Viking library. And like I said, all these books we got at our local library. And this is the last one we got. It's Hands-on History, and it has a bunch of crafts and projects. Now, most of these were a little bit challenging for my kids, so it was mostly me making them and then playing with them. For example, we did the paper mache helmet, and that was just too hard for them. So they were with me, and I basically made it. We didn't finish it because they weren't patient enough, but they still loved using it and doing pretend with it, and so that made it a lot worth it. Now, I would say that some of the writing that goes with it, I read it ahead so that I knew a little bit about what the crafts and projects were about, but it was a little bit much for my kids. I think it's really more for a 3rd or 4th grade level, and I would say that would be accurate. Like, that would be right, but I felt like some of it was just a little bit heavy for my kids. But in general, I was really hoping they'd want to make this, but they never seemed real interested. It looks really good. But this is just a bunch of crafts and a bunch of projects to kind of bring things to life a little bit more. So those were some of our favorite books that we had and that we looked at for our study of Leif the Lucky and the Vikings. Our favorite resources for this Viking section of our study were actually our spine book about Leif the Lucky from Beautiful Feet, and a documentary that I found on YouTube that explores the life of Leif the Lucky and Eric the Red, and I will leave that link in the description box below or up above. But those were by far the most favorite things, the things that got our discussion going the most, the things that the kids were really, really, really interested in. I did not watch the documentary with Timothy. He's too little for such a long thing and so much stuff, but I watched that with Samuel while Timothy was in his rest time, and he really, really enjoyed it. We would read a section of Leif the Lucky, and then we would watch the documentary up to where we read, and then we would read more in Leif the Lucky, and then we would watch the documentary up to where we read, and kind of followed the story along that way. And Samuel absolutely loved that, and he would play out what we had learned about and read about, and it was really, really good. So I'm going to show you Leif the Lucky, and I'm also going to show you what we're doing for a timeline, because we're going to have kind of a key book for almost every single chunk of US history that we do, and we are I'm making copies of those on our copier, or you could just pull images off of the internet, and we are turning that into a timeline in our living room. And I also have a US map that I'm going to put up over on top of the timeline as well, so that we can kind of keep track of everything. This is the Leif the Lucky book, and it's by Ingrid and Edgar Perendalur. I can't say that, but there's a series of books by these. They've been reprinted by Beautiful Feet Book, and they use these a lot for their spines. I like some of them more than others. I probably will not use all of these for our spines, but I will use some. And I really liked this one, and you can see it's got the illustrations. Samuel looked at this book over and over and over again, and he just loved looking at the pictures that are in here. And so from that perspective, it's very captivating for children. It is a very old book, so especially, I mean, it's from, let's see, 1941 is the copyright, so it's an older book. But we really, really enjoyed it and felt like it was a good introduction to Leif the Lucky and Eric the Red. And the reality is that we're not sure how much of this story is true and how much of it is made up. But clearly there is truth behind the story, and so it was just a good way to talk about a lot of that. And this is our timeline wall. This is in our living room, and we're just going to put things in order. I'm not worrying about dates at this point. So we have Leif the Lucky right here. Now, if I had this to do over again, I would have actually started with Native Americans and then gone to Leif the Lucky and then Columbus and so on. But the thought didn't cross my mind until after we had already started in on our Vikings. We'll take the timeline all the way here. I'm looking forward to seeing this wall filled up with American history. So that's kind of a wrap up of our Viking unit, but I would love to make one of these videos sharing with you as we go through and at the beginning and the end what we do for the different units, and I would love to know what you guys are interested in seeing, so let me know in the comments below what will be most useful for you as I go along. I will leave links, I'll leave book titles, I'll leave all that information in the comments below, and I hope that you guys are having a great day. Also, If you've done Vikings, what are some great Viking resources that you found would have been your favorite things to do? I would love, 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 love to hear. So let me know, and I will talk to you guys later. Have a great day. Bye.